Well, that's Stephen Cheah. He's with us. Morning, buddy. Steven? Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry.
What's
up, buddy? My microphone came unplugged.
Are you an Oakley guy? Like an Oakley?
Like sunglasses?
Yeah.
No. Unless I'm wearing a football helmet, in which case Oakley visor.
Okay. Well, that's different. That's actually cool. But the glasses, I was joking about because apparently Bill Walton there's a suspicion. We've been hearing that he's going to make his way to Indy to be a part of the broadcast now with all the Pac-12 teams that are still in the tournament.
Yep.
And I was joking about how all the replies are just dudes who wear, fitted hats backwards and wear Oakley sunglasses and have barbed wire tattoos, and they're all just they're the ones who get super shitty about somebody like Bill Walton broadcasting a game,
Baseball guys, I'm sure. I mean, I love Jared, but Jared is 100% an Oakley's guy.
Yeah, you said it, but I would have to agree with you on that. He if you didn't know him and you just saw him somewhere, screams Oakley guy.
But I mean, in fairness, he's a baseball guy. So I feel like for baseball guys, that's cool.
Okay, that's fair. I'm down with that. All right, man. So you got mock draft 3.0 dropping at in 30 minutes? Okay. So just before we get into it in more detail, and for the people who get a little sneak preview of it, 3.0, what are some things for you that have changed or that stand out a little bit more?
So in 2.0, I had Deshaun Watson getting dealt to the Broncos, or the Broncos trading for him. I feel like right now Deshaun Watson is a little bit radioactive. I don't think you're a team if you're dealing multiple first-round picks, you can't do it with this monstrous cloud that is around Deshaun Watson. With I think now the list has ballooned to 14 people that have come out. Now he's nothing has been proven that he's been guilty. These are just accusations, and apparently his legal team has a kind of a smoking gun that's going to discredit everyone. But on the chance that it is correct, you can't deal multiple picks, let alone first-round picks, for a guy with an enormous cap number that could be on the commissioner's exempt list. So I think the whole Deshaun Watson situation is going to be put on pause. I feel like it's doubtful it'll be kind of cleared up before the draft. So I have him staying put. I have the Jets making a trade with the Seahawks and the Bears, actually a 3-team deal to send Russell Wilson to the New York Jets and the Seattle Seahawks. We're going to take Zach Wilson.
Wow. That is bombshell there, man.
Yeah.
Obviously all the talk and smoke has been this offseason about Russell Wilson wanting out, but I mean, what lends you to think that it's going to be something that could happen?
Just kind of reading the tea leaves as far as different reporters. This all kind of came out with Russell Wilson at the Super Bowl, just looking pretty unhappy. He then, story emerged in The Athletic where he suggested to the Seahawks coaching staff some changes that they could implement to help their offense, and they just kind of brushed him off, and he stormed out of the room. And then Schefter and Rappaport both have kind of doubled down and being I wouldn't be surprised if Russell Wilson is traded. We look at the Seahawks. The Seahawks have a pretty clear model. Their GM, John Schneider, he has some great hits. They selected Russell Wilson in the 3rd round. They got DK Metcalf in the 2nd round. Great picks. But they also whiff on a ton of guys. And they are a team that loves to accumulate picks. I mean, the fact of the matter is the draft is a 50-50 proposition. If you get half your picks right and they're solid players, and that's a good draft. If you come out of the draft with 3 starters, that is a great draft. The Seahawks have 3 picks this year. So for a team that loves volume and, knowing that they're only going to get, basically 1 to 2 guys in this draft with how they currently are stacked up, I can see them wanting more picks. And right now, the way both their division is stacked and the way their team looks, they're a team that doesn't have an edge rusher. Chris Carson, they just re-signed, who's, an okay back that has fumbling problems. They have a good receiving core. Russell Wilson's good, but their offensive line still stinks outside of Dwayne Brown. So this is a move. I think we're really going to start to see some momentum pile up for this because Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU, his pro day is Friday. And at the most recent big quarterback pro day, Trey Lance, I think there were 5 or 6 teams that were there, and one of them was the Seahawks. And the Seahawks don't have a first-round pick. So they're at least doing their due diligence and taking a look at these quarterbacks. And I think Zach Wilson is going to be a really good fit for what he can do. He's a mobile guy with a really strong arm. He has, and I don't want to get crushed with this, but he has Mahomes-like qualities. I think I put it out in a tweet that he's not if Mahomes is Steph Curry, he's like Trey Young. He can do some of those things. He's definitely not the same guy and have to fall into a perfect situation for it to work out. But I think this is a move where Seattle could look at it and kind of hit the reset button on their franchise. With the trade, Seattle would send Russell Wilson to the Jets. The Jets would send their second pick, their other first rounder, which is 23 overall, a 2022 first, and a 2022 second to Seattle. The Jets would also send Sam Darnold to Chicago, and Chicago would send the number 20 overall pick to Seattle. So Seattle would then have 3 first-round picks this year, and then they would get an additional first-round pick and second-round pick next year.
Wow. So with all of that, Chicago, still all our Chicago guys still getting screwed. No, they get.
I actually think this. If this worked out like this, I propose, I think that actually works out for the Bears because they would move down essentially. Chicago would get the 34th overall pick. So the Jets' second rounder. So it's the second pick of that round. So the Bears would move down 14 spots, and they would get a quarterback with some promise in Sam Darnold. The Jets would obviously get to reset with Russell Wilson, and the Seahawks would get to reset with Zach Wilson. I think when we look at the quarterbacks, when Schefter put out that tweet about whatever it was, 17, 18 quarterbacks, teams could have new quarterbacks, it's a game of musical chairs, and I think this at least fits where 3 teams could get those needs filled.
What do you say to those that scout that came out, or that front office guy that said, "Hey, Sam Darnold stinks"? You put any stock into that?
No, I mean, I'm sure there are a fair amount of people that don't think Sam Darnold is very good. He hasn't put a lot of good stuff on tape. When you look at when he came out, a lot of people viewed him as the top guy in that draft. Baker Mayfield was kind of, if you remember, a surprise number 1 overall pick. It didn't really even leak till the day before, and then it was still even kind of uncertain. So Sam Darnold was kind of the guy looked at as the guy to get in that draft. He's obviously dealt a pretty tough hand with the Jets and Adam Gase and just kind of their weapons. So if you think he still can be something, and we just had Jordan Palmer on our show a couple months ago who said, as far as tools, he's a guy with top 5, top 10 tools from the quarterback position in the league. What's tough is he is in the 5th-year option of his deal, so he is not necessarily a cheap player, and then you have to kind of decide whether to re-sign him. But you at least get a year where you get to evaluate him with a reasonable number contract for a quarterback.
Did the Alabama Pro Day yesterday shift anything for you, or did it keep everything pretty much still the same?
Not a ton. I mean, Najee Harris didn't run. Devonta Smith said that he weighed 170 pounds, which is 5 pounds lighter than he was listed playing weight. It's kind of tough because he's such a good player, and he obviously won the Heisman Trophy. And a lot of it gets made that I hate him. I don't hate him as a player. I think he's going to be a good pro. It's just that I have always been on the statement that he's not going to be a top 10 pick, just because you can't draft a guy with that physical profile in the top 10. It's too much of a risk, and the draft is really kind of about traits. You draft on traits over production. And he has a lot of production, but his traits are nowhere close to elite.
What about Mac Jones? I see a lot of smoke now that it seems like New England, everybody is just matching up those ties there. Are we thinking him to New England at all?
I think he's an option for them. I mean, they still have to get up. You have to – Schefter put out the tweet that he says 4 quarterbacks are going in the top 6 or 7, bank on it. So – I think the most obvious trade down candidate will be the Lions. They have so many holes to fill. Obviously, with the deal with Goff and Stafford, they're looking to accumulate future first rounders. So that's a spot where you could say, okay, realistically, they would have to, you'd think, get in front of Carolina. I actually have Mac Jones going 8 to Carolina. He's going to be my first Alabama player off the board.
Wow.
A few reasons for this. There have been rumors that the Panthers really like him. They got a chance to coach him at the Senior Bowl, so they had him for a week. Now, he did sprain his ankle in the last day of practice, so they didn't get to coach him in the game, but he did have a really good week of practice. Another nugget is that Matt Rule, when he was at Baylor, actually tried to recruit Mac Jones to Baylor. And then at the Senior Bowl as well, the Panthers' new owner, David Tepper, was in attendance, which is not a normal thing. You don't see owners go to the Senior Bowl. So you'd think maybe they're trying to do a little bit more due diligence on the quarterback that they're coaching. I think he's going to be there at 8, so they wouldn't have to really trade up. And I believe the record was like 1-8 or something like that, or 1-9 in one-score games last year. They have Teddy Bridgewater, who they're comfortable trotting out as a starter, but he doesn't have any guaranteed money beyond this year. I think this could be a great bridge year for Teddy Bridgewater and Mac Jones if they do decide to go in that direction.
Saw yesterday, not only Alabama had their pro day, but Purdue, my Boilermakers had their pro day, and Ronald Moore, really lit it up. Really put on a performance physically that was impressive. Now, he did get measured at 5'7".
Yep,
that is still very small. Yeah, still short. Who is a good fit for my guy Rondale Moore? Is he, after those numbers, a surefire first rounder, or does the things about his health and his size push him more into a second or third round value pick?
I would be surprised if he was picked before the end of the second round. And I say that because he's really a luxury player. He is a guy at his size. I mean, you don't see 5'7" guys split out. He was listed at 5'9", and I know he can squat like 600 pounds, and he's he ran a sub 4.3, but he hasn't been healthy in 2 seasons. Yeah. He definitely has intriguing traits with, his explosiveness and his measurables and things like that. But he's a guy who you're most likely going to have to manufacture touches for. I'm sure he can help in the return game. You can get him in on some jet sweeps and things like that. But that type of player, there's not a ton of positional value just because you will have to manufacture touches for them. He doesn't have a super refined route tree. When he was a freshman at Purdue and he set kind of the world on fire, he was incredible, but he was healthy, and the best ability is availability, and he just really hasn't had that. So he's definitely an injury concern. To go along with his size, I think that would definitely push him down. End of the second round is where I think you could see him go. End of the second round, you're going to have teams that are a little bit more established that do maybe have less holes than teams that are picking, lower in each round. So I think that is probably the ceiling for him. I can't see a team, no matter what his numbers are, picking a 5'7" receiver in the first round that has a pretty checkered injury history.
Okay. Even with, you hear it all the time, NFL is a matchup-driven league. You try to dream about, line him up on a linebacker with option routes, or, people like a safety, like short space type of stuff. The league's kind of, really important on that. Everybody throws out the Tyreek Hill type of comparison. Even with all of that, still late second round for you?
Yeah, I understand that comparison. Tyreek Hill still is bigger. 5'7" is just so tiny. If he was 5'9", I think that does make a fairly substantial difference. That would still be short, but it's not unheard of short. 5'7", we're talking MJD, I think, was 5'6". So there aren't many guys that are tinier than that from a height perspective. Think about that. You split him out. What's his catch radius? You're really gonna have to manufacture. He's gonna be playing against corners that are 6 feet and above. So I think it's tough. He's definitely gonna have a speed advantage, but just you really have to kind of manufacture stuff like bubble screens, tunnel screens, smoke screens, jet sweep stuff. I think if you can get him the ball in space on some crossers, absolutely. But at that size, with his wingspan, he's gonna have a tough time if teams choose to get up on him and press him. So I think he's more of a luxury pick.
Do you remember Dree Archer?
Of course, yeah. Appalachian State?
No, he was Kent State.
Kent State, yep.
Out of the MAC. All that stuff you're saying, it kind of screams Dree Archer to me. Do you?
And he was what, like a 5th or 6th? Like he wasn't an early pick.
No, he wasn't. And my Steelers drafted him, and you know he had a lot of those similar traits, like you said. Like he's obviously super explosive, obviously you know electric, and can make things happen. But it really flamed out for him with us because of all those reasons you said. His size was just literally so underwhelming that it didn't matter how fast he was. So that kind of worries me for Rondale. And I'm a huge Rondale Moore guy, but
yeah,
all those things that you said, I'm like, is this Dree Archer 2.0?
Yeah, I mean, you look at him like, what is he going to be like? Do you transition him almost to like a Darren Sproles type running back role where he's like a 3rd down back? I don't know. I think it's going to be hard to stick in the league at that size. Like, there's no way he can play like boundary X. So you put him at 0 receiver, so he's not necessarily jammed. Slot, but then I don't really see it.
Okay, what do you think that this month leading up, right? You know, the Zach Wilson talk is just going to be fucking off the charts, and you know, and
Friday,
and there's a lot of reason for that, sure. But at the end of the day, like, you think Trevor Lawrence, you know, the Jags have any sort of doubt in their mind that Trevor Lawrence is the pick, and then maybe even 2 years from now, we're like, why were we hyping all that up when Trevor Lawrence was obviously the pick to go with?
Yeah, I mean, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the clear-cut number one. He has everything you look for from like a physical profile. He has production. He's got the arm strength. He's got the leadership, character, like all this stuff. Like checks all the boxes. He can move too. So that's always a plus for a guy his size. You'd think that when Urban Meyer came to Jacksonville, you know, he obviously has a good feel for the college game. He kind of had things in mind. So I don't think he was, you know, signing up for Jacksonville to be like, hey, did you see what this kid out of BYU did this last season? Because before this year, Zach Wilson was on nobody's radar.
Right.
Like it wasn't even certain that he was going to start for BYU.
Right.
So yeah, I can't really see it. He obviously is going to have a lot of familiarity with Justin Fields, just being around that program. But I can't really see that either. Trevor Lawrence is, you know, back in the day, you used to be able to negotiate contracts before the draft started. So, you know, I remember Mario Williams like had a contract in place before the day of the draft. Due to TV ratings and things like that. I think Kyler Murray might have been the first one that like, or maybe even before that, but like it was kind of uncertain who was going to be picked first. And you know, they obviously want to do that for ratings and intrigue. But if there was a world where they could negotiate contracts before, I'm sure Trevor Lawrence's would be done way before April 29th.
I got to ask you about my Steelers here. You have them in Mock Draft 3.0 that's dropping on BarstoolSports.com in less than 15 minutes. I'm lucky enough for the viewers here. I have the ability within our HQ, we call it, that I can – it hasn't published yet, but I can go get a sneak peek. So you have the Steelers staying at 24. They're not drafting – you know, they're not moving up to draft their quarterback of the future. But I like this pick because I think there's been so much talk, and even from me, from, you know, an offensive line rebuild to a guy like Travis Etienne or Najee Harris at 24. You have them taking J.C. Horn out of South Carolina. He's a cornerback. Why a corner at 24 for the Steelers?
I think just overall from that position, they need to get younger. Like their best guy is Joe Hayden, and he's been in the league since 2010. You know, Steven Nelson, who's a good player, just got released after they were trying to look for a trade for him.
Yep.
So they don't have like a ton of guys on the outside. I know that a lot of Steeler faithful have been kind of smitten over Nick Bolton, who's the linebacker, to pair with Devin Bush. I actually have him go on the pick after to the Jags. So in this scenario, he is on the board and they pass on him. But I don't know. I mean, corner is just such an important position. When you look at their division, I mean, Baltimore isn't really as big of a threat on the receiving end, but you know, Bengals have good receivers, especially if they take one early in the draft, like a Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase. They got Tyler Boyd. You know, T. Higgins is obviously a player after year one, and then obviously the Browns. I mean, you know, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham.
Right. Yeah, no, that's why I like it. And I said when I looked at the Steelers mock draft kind of 1.0s right after the season ended, I was like, look, everybody's going to be talking about, lineman and running back and even quarterback. But I was like, all those reasons that you just said, I was like, corner is definitely a sneaky need. And I mean, it's not sneaky in terms of importance. Everybody knows in the NFL you need good corners. But for the Steelers, nobody was really talking about it. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if J.C. Horn or corner is called at 24 on that night. All right, let me get to a few more. Is there any chance? I know that there's certain people. I think Cowherd said it yesterday. The Dolphins are still at number 3.
Yep.
It was a trendy thing to talk about on Twitter throughout the end of last year that Tua not looking like the guy. Maybe they need a redo at quarterback. And since they're drafting at 3, what better chance to say, hey, we're going to go get our guy instead of Tua. Is there any chance, do you think, that the Dolphins could say, Tua time's out, we're going with a new dude at QB?
There's certainly a chance, but I think if they stick at that pick, it would be very surprising. We saw this happen with Josh Rosen in Arizona, but they had the number 1 overall pick. So theoretically, you think Trevor Lawrence is going to be gone, Zach Wilson likely gone. So you're going to have your pick of, what you would deem as the third best quarterback in the draft, or what the league is telling you. So do you really trade it all in for Justin Fields or Trey Lance, who's a project, or even like a Mac Jones? Like, I don't really see it. I think Deshaun Watson's situation changes a lot of things because Miami was on his list. It's Miami and the Jets. Yeah. So if he's kind of off the table, or at least you'd think that is for now, Tua, you had a whole tank for Tua campaign. He's played 9 games for them. Like, build up the offensive line, give him some more weapons on the outside, and see what this guy can do, because he has had really good flashes of brilliance. The last game against Buffalo where he has 3 picks, that's not what you want to see, but he's a young quarterback. You got to stick by him. He's shown some promise. I would build the offensive line. I don't know how you they drafted Austin Jackson last year, who's a little bit of a reach. They got Robert Hunt playing right tackle right now. He played guard in college. What makes you think he's going to kick out to tackle in the pros? I think, if you got a guy like Penei Sewell there sitting there from Oregon, who opted out this year, but is, if he came out last year, would have made a big 5 tackles instead of big 4. I think that's a position you need to address if you have an injury-plagued quarterback who's also small, who you're looking to develop. I think that's probably the best move. So I'd be hard-pressed to see them not going there. Like, I can't see them taking – Jamar Chase is awesome. I can't see them taking a receiver at 3. Like, receivers just don't get picked that high. And if they do, they're absolute freak shows, like an Andre Johnson or Calvin Johnson. Like, Jamar Chase is going to run probably mid-4.5s.
Right.
I don't see it.
Okay. All right. Coming up, less than 10 minutes. I know you're going to be pumping it out. We will as well on Stephen Shea's NFL Mock Draft 3.0 on BarstoolSports.com. You can go with the entire first round. He's got all the reasonings and everything.
3,500 plus words.
3,500 plus words. First round Mock Draft 3.0 coming out. And then also we have Going Deep, that a great episode that dropped yesterday. With Ross Tucker, that's now live. So if you guys need some really, really fun NFL stories, great insight from behind the scenes, you got to check out Going Deep this week with Ross Tucker. So
his stories were incredible. Cowboys charging $100 a week for lunch.
Come on. Steven, thanks for waking up with me, dude. Looking forward to having everybody read your work out there today.
Cool. Anytime, buddy. If you guys are taking a dump today, Mock Draft 3.0, no better reading for the can.